What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Series 12 team building video, and this time we're looking at Xerneas Groudon. So I've been thinking a little bit more about this one because, you know, on paper, Xerneas by itself in Dynamax doesn't look all that great, right? Especially when there's Zacian. But now with a dual restricted format, and now that you have a second uber restricted like Groudon, maybe now Xerneas can be a little bit okay in Dynamax, right? And the reason why I think that is because although you're weak to Zacian, Groudon brings the Sun Core, the Sun Boys as I like to call it, and they can deal with Zacian just fine. And Xerneas itself is a pretty good answer to a lot of popular meta threats if you think about it. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at Evan Smoke's Pokepaste here. Sorry, his spreadsheet. So let's look at VR, right? Victory Road, top cut. So Zacian's everywhere, right? We know that. But look at what's at the top here. So first of all, what won? It was Jesus' team with Zacian Palkia, okay. And then from there, look at third place. It was Maddie with Zacian Yveltal, okay. And then the majority is basically Kyogre. There's a Lunala in there, but that's Maddie's team. And then there's another, there's a couple of Yveltals, right? So now that I think about this, oh look, there's a Xerneas team there. From VR, you know, Palkia doesn't want to deal with Xerneas. Yveltal doesn't want to deal with Xerneas. Okay, and Kyogre, if Xerneas gets its Geomancy up, doesn't want to deal with Xerneas because it can't really damage it all that well. And then the rest of this is, you know, just like Incineroars and Rillabooms, and the Sun Boys can pretty much take care of all of that. And yes, there is Zapdos, but again, that doesn't want to have to deal with Xerneas. You can't really touch it all that well unless it's running like Eerie Impulse stuff. But even then, you have Groudon on your team that can very much deal with Zapdos. Now, Zapdos can have a fire move like Heat Wave and Airstream, which Venusaur and even Groudon doesn't really like, but you have, again, ways to deal with Zapdos. All right, but, you know, considering this, I think Yveltal has an answer to a lot of the secondary restricteds here that's on this team besides Zacian, and your Sun Core can deal with Zacian. Now, let's look at Limitless, right? So if we look at Limitless, look, what won? It was Joe's team, right? Zacian, Yveltal. All right, Yveltal doesn't really want to deal with Xerneas, and the rest of these things, you know, even Grimmsnarl again doesn't want to deal with Xerneas. Yes, there's screen support, but you know the Sun Core can do well. There is a Rotom Heat, which you know Xerneas doesn't quite like all that much, but even then, it's still okay. Because you have rock moves on your team. All right, and then even here, look, more Yveltal. There's another Xerneas, right, from Skyroot. I actually spoke to him a little bit about his Xerneas team just to get a little bit of ideas. And then look, more Kyogre, all right, and more. There's an Yveltal, and it's mostly Kyogres, right? So, you know, considering this, like, okay, you got like a bunch of Kyogres, a bunch of Zacians. You know, that's obviously the most popular kind of team, right? Swordfish. So as long as you can, you know, position your Groudon to deny Kyogre's reign, and then if you have like the Charizard and the Venusaurs, you know, that can position themselves properly, then, you know, Xerneas can just, you know, deal with the rest of the team and can even deal a little bit with Zacian, because once you get your Geomancy boost, you outspeed it. Now, granted, you're not going to be able to like one-shot it, but you're going to be doing heavy damage where like your Venusaur and even your Zard, even if Zacian clicks Protect, you know, that's pretty much it. So yeah, it's all about positioning with your Xerneas here and having that threat of, you know, killing the Zacian. Because, for example, you know, if your Xerneas is in front of a Zacian, but you have a Charizard on the other side, does their Zacian really want to KO your Xerneas? Because they'll just die to the Charizard, right? So now again, we'll look at let's keep going. Let's look at the Nino Tour, right? The Nino Limitless. So what won here? So look, more Yveltal Zacian teams, all right? And honestly, you know, again, the core looks really good in terms of the Sun Core. So yeah, this is why I think there's hope with Xerneas and Groudon here. So let's just keep on going. But yeah, look, there's more Sun. But again, Now let's just try and build the rest of the squad. So this way we can see what kind of team we can come up with in Xerneas and Groudon. Alright, so now that we've understood that there is a place for Xerneas and for Groudon, so now let's just round out the rest of the team. So of course you're going to have the Sun Boys. You're going to have a Venusaur on this team, okay, and it is going to be Chlorophyll. We are going to have a Fire type on this. I think Incineroar has to come, okay, because you need a little bit more security with Xerneas here. You know, if you can take out one Mon with Fake Out and then set up your Geomancy, that's really, really good. And then even next turn where you can protect Xerneas and then Parting Shot out into something that's a little bit more favorable for a partner for Xerneas, then that's also great as well. The Venusaur is really good in the Kyogre games because, you know, you can pressure the Kyogre with G-Max Vine Lashes. You know, when you position your Groudon in, you can go for those max flares because that you have Weather Ball on your Venusaur, so you know it doesn't really want to deal with that. And then, you know, for opposing Sun teams, you also have your own Charizard. Okay, now Zard is also really, really good because again you need some kind of fire breaker to deal with the bigger steel types, right? Not only Xerneas but stuff like Solgaleo. That's rising, as I predicted it would be. You have other steel types, you know, again, mentioning Zacian, but again, you're going to need something to be able to break this. And then G-Max Wildfire Chips, you know, and then you could position your Xerneas in the end game where if you set up the Geomancy, things have already taken a lot of chip damage, and now you can just potentially KO them with +2 Dazzling Gleams or +2 Moonblasts. All right, and then from here, this last slot, so this is what I was working with, right? I made two kinds of squads, one with Grimmsnarl, where you have the screen support, and then the other one where you had, instead of Grimmsnarl, you had the Indeedee, right? So, you know, Indeedee is really good here because, you know, you get redirection for your Xerneas, you can stop Fake Out from Incineroars, and then you can even set up with Groudon with potential Swords Dance. All right, and you know, Calyrex Shadow doesn't really want to can't really touch Indeedee that much because of our typing. But yeah, I think Indeedee also has a place on this kind of team. So this is what I was working with. It was either Indeedee or it was Grimmsnarl, and the sets that I was running with kind of differed depending on what I was using. But let's look at this one first, and then we'll build the Grimmsnarl team. All right, so let's just do the EVs, the items, and the movesets. But for now, let's just reveal the GIFs. We have the Indeedee, we have the Incineroar, we have the Venusaur, and we have the Charizard. All right, so that's our 6. All right, so let's start with Xerneas here. Let's keep it relatively standard here. So we are going to go Power Herb, of course. Nothing too crazy here. Of course, we're going to go with Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam. All right, Geomancy. This is what makes Xerneas, and then Protect. Okay, I've seen some stuff with like Psyshock just to try and snipe Venusaurs. I don't think that's necessary. I think the standard Power Up set is all you need. Groudon, Citrus Berry, excellent recovery, especially after you take those Water Spouts on switching. Precipice Blades, the trademark move for Groudon. You know, and this is what hurts Incineroars and Zacians really, really hard. And then we have the Rock Slide. This is good against opposing flying types and against opposing Charizards. You know, you need that rock coverage on this team. Of course, Swords Dance, you know, just in case teams want to pivot their Incineroars and cycle to bring you from neutral to -1. Now you click Swords Dance and now you're back to +1. All right, always nice. And then of course, Protect in the last slot. Venusaur. So here on this kind of team, you know, if this was a Grimmsnarl, I would put a weakness policy on it. But for now, we're just going to put the Life Orb on it and just be a violent Venusaur. Leaf Storm, again, Earth Power, you know, max Quake boost. Then we have Weather Ball, which becomes max Flare in the sun. And if it's in the rain, then it becomes max Geyser. And of course, the broken move called Sleep Powder. All right, this is what gives you outs to a lot of different endgame scenarios where, you know, Protect is just not optimal. You need that. You need to put it to sleep for 3 turns, right? So Sleep Powder is good. Incineroar, Intimidate. So now we have the Citrus Berry on the ground, and so here it's safe to put the safety goggles on it. This is also useful against like the opposing Sun team matchups where, you know, you just can't take a sleep from Venusaur or the Amoonguss as well. You know, you don't want to fall asleep to that either. So it's good against sleep shenanigans. And also weather damage from like hail or sand chip. Flare Blitz, Fake Out, Parting Shot, and of course Throat Chop. This is the dark move that we need to pin that Calyrex Shadow. All right. Now for our Charizard, so you might consider why don't you just put the Life Orb on the Charizard? But again, my thought process is Zard already can overkill a lot of things, and I think it very much appreciates a little bit more extra bulk. So we put the Assault Vest here, and we're gonna go with an extra attack here. But now we're gonna see something else that's a little bit new. I like the Blast Burn recently. It does a lot of damage, and when you're Dynamax, it does even more as opposed to something like Heat Wave, right? Although Heat Wave is really good in the sun, I think the Blast Burn really helps out. Hurricane is also good in the Dynamax, and also if it's raining, your Hurricane becomes 100% accurate. So it has its use there. Scorching Sands, the Max Quake move, so something to hit Incineroars with, and also just getting extra special defense boosts is always nice. And this is the one that I like to use as the tech with Ancient Power. So you need a rock move on your own Zard, because sometimes Groudon is just not enough, and opposing Zards will outspeed it and just knock it out of the water or knock it out of the sun with that Wildfire. So if your own Zard has a rock move like Ancient Power, then you can just KO the opposing Zard because it's 4 times weak to it. So really nice tech. I've always enjoyed using this, and it has come up in a lot of games where you have to use Ancient Power, otherwise their Zard will just have its way. Because if you look at the rest of your team, you don't really have too much to deal with an opposing Zard other than your own Groudon's Rock Slide. But sometimes you just can't max the Groudon and you need something else, so your own Zard is really good. And the thing with the Assault Vest is you can take those Regieleki electric attacks a little bit better, and even something like Zapdos, which is more common now. Zapdos will want to go for electric attacks, so if you have the Assault Vest, you're able to take those attacks just a little bit better, survive them, and then get off your potential G-Max Wildfire if you need to. Alright, so Indeedee, this is going to be our Psychic Surge mod, so we're going to get Terrain here. So now what we're going to do is, you deny priority moves like opposing Incineroar Fake Outs, or even Grimmsnarl shenanigans, where if they want to click Scary Face or Thunder Wave, it's just not going to work. So Psychic Surge is really good for denying that. Follow Me is good, of course. Expanding Force for that damage move, and then Helping Hand just to help your Charizards, your Xerneas, or your Groudons deal a little bit more damage, and then Protect, right? So we have a lot of tools on this kind of squad. You have Intimidate, you have Fake Out, you have a little bit of Redirection, you have Status Infliction, with Sleep from Venusaur. You have an Airstream user with Zard, and Venusaur can be fast in the sun. So there's a form of speed control right there. So this is the original 6. So now let's just take a look at the EVs. Okay, so let's start with Xerneas first. So I think what's important here is, because you have Incineroar on the team for Intimidate, I think what you can do is try and EV this, where you can survive the Zacian Behemoth Blade after you cycle your Incineroar Intimidate. So there is a few calcs you can do and a few different ways to do it, but first I want to do the speed tier first, because without the speed tier, then you can't really do the bulk so much. So always do the speed tier first. So first we're gonna go modest. That's the main thing. Now there's a few speed tiers that you can do. You can go extra slow and just go this much, where after your +2 Geomancy, you can outspeed base 100s that are already +1, and then you can go super bulky, right? So it would look something like this, where you can do 223 and then up 148, and this will let you survive the Zacian Behemoth Blade. And then from here you can just go 12 points here, and then the rest can go into something like this, right? But if this is too slow, which I think it is, then what we can do is go a little bit faster. You can do something like this, where if you're at 139 investment, now after Geomancy you can outspeed Regieleki, and if you go to 140 you can outspeed those potential speed creepers, right? That's another speed tier you can do. If you go to 146, this is now for Venusaur, so if the opposing Venusaur has Sun and you have Geomancy, you outspeed it by 1, which is key because then you can, you know, go first before you potentially get slept or before Venusaur gets to attack. But what I think is also even better is this one, 149, which is the Calyrex shadow number, right? So after a +1 from a Charizard with an Airstream, then you can outspeed it, you know, and then not have to take a Astral Barrage, right? At least in the beginning. So what's cool here is with your Geomancy, you know, with the +2 special defenses, you know, Astral Barrage or something like Water Spout doesn't really hit you too hard. So I think this is a good speed tier number for that. Now the rest of the bulk, so this is what we're gonna do. We're actually not gonna have that much special attack whatsoever. We're gonna have maybe the most minimum, and what that means is just 4. All right, because Xerneas doesn't really need that much special attack if you think about it, because you know you're getting +2, and although you can't really KO that many things, you can still do a lot of damage with your Geomancy, and you still can actually KO a lot of things. Like +2 Moonblast is killing Yveltal, +2 Moonblast is killing, you know, Palkia, and you know, and all these things. So you know, this is all you need, and if you want to deal big chip damage to Zacian, and then bring in your Zard or Groudon and finish the job, then you can always do that. Okay, so this is all you need. Now in terms of the rest of our bulk, we're just going to go 44 in the HP mark. So this is going to optimize your HP for your weather damage. All right, so if you do 207 divided by 16, just a little bit of a quick math here, it should come out to about 12.9 actually. So that'll round down to 12. So you're only taking 12 damage per turn with your weather damage from hail or sand. And then from here, you're just going to have a tiny bit of special defense, and then the rest just goes into defense. And what this does is after Intimidate cycle, you can live the Zacian Behemoth Blade. So you're a very, very bulky Xern. All right, and you have the Indeedee redirection to help you set up the Geomancy. So I think it's really, really nice. All right, so that's a good speed tier with 149. And this will live the Behemoth Blade after Incineroar comes into play. All right, Groudon, this one's a little bit more straightforward. So here we're just going to go Adamant, and we'll use the same kind of build that we've used last time. So if Groudon and Charizard are together, what I'm going to do is invest 84 speed EVs, which will get it to 121. So after +1, you are now faster than Thundurus. All right, and then from here, we'll just optimize our HP for Citrus Berry. You know, 206 is better than 207 because you have an even number. And then we'll just go first bump in the attack stat, which is 76. All right, so you see how you go from 196, and then the next bump, the next EV investment will take you to the first bump, which is 198. So you skipped 197, right? So again, if you don't know what EV bumps are, make sure you comment in this video below, because if you don't understand what EV bumps are, you know, you're going to have some trouble a little bit when you play competitive Pokemon. Always understand what EV bumps are and where they are for each Pokemon. All right, and then from here, we just want a tiny bit of defense and then the rest in special defense. And what this does is when Kyogre's in play and you switch in your Groudon, and if the Kyogre goes for Water Spout in the sun, you can take one, activate your Very potentially, and then take another one, right? So really, really good to have special defense investment in your Groudon. All right. Now for Venusaur here, so a couple things you can do. Of course, we're going modest here, and my thing with Venusaur is I like to go 212 here. Okay, because this is what's going to let you outspeed base 100s after their +1 when you're in the sun. So stuff like Zapdos is really common, and Zapdos likes to go for Airstream. And you know, you don't want Zapdos to outspeed you after one Airstream, right? That's not good. So if we go to 127 when we're in the sun, we're still faster than something like a Zapdos, even with its +1, right? Then from here, you can go max modest like this, all right, and then just get a little bit of Life Orb optimization, and then just do something like this so that you're a hard-hitting modest Venusaur. I think this is fine. Or you can go a little bit more bulky, so this way you can throw your opponent's damage calcs off and just go either something like this where you're at 156 the second bump, and then just, you know, have a little bit more investment like this, 69, and then okay, and then finally over here, beep. Okay, just a tiny bit of defense like this. I think this is also okay. Or you can go even more bulkier and just drop this to first bump, special attack. You know, you're already Life Orb, you're dealing a lot of damage, and then just go like 100 defense, something like this. All right, and then you know this is good because you still hit hard. You have a Life Orb, and you have some good defensive bulk, which Venusaur very much appreciates. And Incineroar can help you out with that as well. And you know, the opponent doesn't really know this, especially in a best of 3 tournament. They don't know your spreads. They just know, you know, your moves, your items, and that's it. So really nice to have. All right, Incineroar. Okay, so I'm gonna use the same Incineroar that I've been using since day 1. We'll just go first EV bump here with the special defense in our careful nature. I like a fast Incineroar with 95 speed. All right, and this is really good when you have Grimmsnarl on the team. I know we don't have Grimmsnarl, so it's not as super good, but it's still very much effective. All right, and then from here we just want to go a tiny bit in the attack and special defense and the regular defense. So what this does is you can live a Zacian close combat after Intimidate, but also with a fast throat chop, you can stop them from going for their own parting shot or stop them from snarling. And in Trick Room, you have the slower parting shot, right? So if they go for a parting shot first, all right, then whatever they bring in, then you can go for your parting shot and then pivot out your Incineroar after that. So I always like that in a Trick Room kind of mode if the opponent decides to bring it, right? So that's always my advantage. And then of course I get the faster fake out if that matters to you. And sometimes it does matter. All right, so those are the 3 reasons why I like a faster Incineroar. All right, now for Charizard, well, before we do Charizard, let's just do Indeedee. This is the easiest one. So we're just gonna go timid here. We just want to be like a fast, hard-hitting Indeedee. Nothing too crazy here. 252, 252, 4 is okay because we are Focus Sash. All right, and after Airstream, we actually outspeed Calyrex Shadow, believe it or not. Calyrex Shadow speed creepers, which is kind of cool. All right, now for Zard, so you know it's easy to just do this. Oh, we're timid, and just do this. You know, you could easily do this. It's fine, but you know it's not like super optimal. So what I want to do instead is, of course, we're gonna keep the max speed, but we're gonna have just about 156 investment here, something like this. A little bit of HP and a little bit of defense. All right, and this was really good with Grimmsnarl, right? Because with Intimidate and Reflect, you know, you could live stuff like, you know, Landorus Rock Falls or even like Regieleki hits, you know, with the Assault Vest and Light Screens. I know we don't have it, the Grimmsnarl on this kind of, on this team because we have the Indeedee, but I'll show you the second version where we are running Grimmsnarl, and then we'll change some of these items just a tiny bit, but still, the Assault Vest Zard is still really good against stuff like Regieleki, you know, just to be able to take those Thunderbolts or whatnot. And, you know, they don't expect it because they don't know you have the Assault Vest yet if you're playing ladder. And if they see this in a best of 3 team sheet, they're probably going to think that you're super bulky. So, you know, they might have to change the way they play a little bit in terms of targeting you with like that super effective electric attack. They may choose to double up on you, you know, for example. Okay, which will allow things like Zacian, or Xerneas and Groudon to be able to pick up KOs because they're so concerned with your AV Charizard, for example. But this is our bulky Zard, and there is a few calcs that I can show you in the damage calc section. So yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But did I do everything? I think I did. All right, yeah, this is one version. So this is one type of modest Xerneas, as I like to call it. But yeah, you got a lot of cool options. Like I said before, you have the redirection to help support Xerneas. You have Intimidate support. You have Fake Out Pressure. You have good, strong Dynamax options with Venusaur and Zard. The Groudon can also potentially Dynamax as well. And there are some situations where you can Dynamax Xerneas, although not that often. I think this is just meant here to put on pressure, while these two are the big Dynamax options. All right. So now let's just take a look at some sample damage calcs. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to take a look at Zacian here against our Xerneas. So this is a standard Jolly 252-252 Zacian. And look how Behemoth Blade just absolutely wrecks it. But if you get your Incineroar in on the other slot and Intimidate it and bring the Zacian to -1, there it is. So just about 6.3% chance. I think that's still good. If you want, you can just up the defense a little bit and just take away from you know, some of that speed, but I don't think that's necessary. I think this is more than fine. There are spreads that you can do where you can live this, but you have to make it a little bit slower, obviously, and then you can still have a little bit more special attack if you want that. But I think this defense investment is more than sufficient, right? So now let's take a look at something like Calyrex or even Kyogre. So if it's Calyrex, all right, let's go standard Cali. You can see that Astral Barrage does about this much, which is not bad at all, considering that we don't have any Geomancy up. But if we do, +2, +2. All right, look at this. So first of all, you KO the Calyrex with Moonblast, and Astral Barrage doesn't really do that much either. If it's Kyogre, all right, if you go standard Kyogre here, so let's go with custom set. Let's go 252. Right, this is 252 modest Kyogre, for example. All right, Water Spout does about 60% in the rain, okay, which is, you know, pretty strong, but still we take it. And Moonblast has a chance, a very low chance to one-shot it. This is no bulk Kyogre, but a lot of them are, you know, starting to run some bulk, but still this is great damage, right? And then it's pretty much, you know, if your Charizard can just go for like one G-Max Wildfire stuff in the other slot, then the Kyogre is pretty much one and done. So pretty cool bulk by our Xerneas over here. And then let's just check one more. I just want to see this one, like the Yveltal. Of course we absolutely smash it, right? But it should be able to take one Moonblast if we don't have any. Yeah, see, you see, if you don't have your Geomancy, if the Yveltal has the Assault Vest, it can take a Moonblast, right? So but if you have the setup already, then you're doing good damage onto Yveltal. What if this was Palkia, right? If this was Palkia, let's just do our Series 11 set. Let's just, you know, actually that's pretty good bulk for a Palkia, right? Let's just assume that it has some HP bulk if it's Life Orb. So Moonblast destroys it. If we don't have the Geomancy setup, it can still one-shot it even with this bulk. All right, so that's something to note. So, you know, Palkia doesn't really want to take a non-Geomancy Moonblast either, so always something to pay attention to. But yeah, this is great in terms of showing the offensive calcs. All right, and we showed that Zacian, it does live Zacian, right? So now let's just go ahead and show some of the others. Okay, so let's look at our Charizard here, and this is going against Regieleki here. So let me just take away Dynamax here. Let's just look at a Focus Sash Regieleki first, and we do have the Assault Vest. So Thunderbolt. So this is Regieleki, no Focus Sash or anything like that. With our AV set, we can live it. If I take away the defenses instead and put it here in the special defenses, now this is a little bit more of a favorable roll in terms of living this Thunderbolt. Again, this is no max, right? No max, nothing. If this was max and Regieleki decides to Dynamax, let's say if they had like a magnet item, okay, if they had a magnet, we can live the max lightning. If it's Life Orb, a little bit different story. I think it's still a favorable roll. Oh, actually we still live the max lightning even though it's Life Orb, so that's cool to know, right? If they had Thunderbolt, Life Orb, they Dynamaxed it and we Dynamax, we can actually survive that max lightning. So that's always nice to have. So I may adjust that in the Pokepaste. But now let's take a look at something like Landorus here. So if this was a standard Landorus, okay, again the Rockfall's killing us, but if we intimidate it, we actually survive the Rockfall. So that's also something to worth note. So this way you can get your G-Max Wildfires going and, you know, just deal some big damage against Landorus. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you can live that Rockfall is huge, but you have to pivot your Incineroar in, right? Because if you don't, you just die. And again, worth noting, and again, if this is a tournament and you see the Life Orb, don't take your chances, because even after Intimidate, the Life Orb Rockfall -1 still kills you. So in order to survive that, it would have to be -2, and that requires more pivoting positioning from you, assuming they still have their max, right? So just make note of that. But again, at the very least, you got the Regieleki calcs, and you have the Landorus calc. So just make sure that you know that it's Life Orb or not Life Orb. And obviously in ladder, there's no way of knowing unless you figure it out beforehand. But, you know, at the very least, yeah, if this is just no max, and you intimidate it, and he clicks Rock Slide, you live it. All right. And something like Blast Burn, does it KO instead of Heat Wave? Let me just check this. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it actually does huge damage against Landorus. So that's also something to worth note. So those are the Charizard calcs. Okay, so now this is our Venusaur going against Landorus. So this is non-Life Orb Landorus, max attack Jolly. Fly kills it, but again, if you're both max, you live one Airstream and then you can get off your Overgrowth. If this was Life Orb, okay, you absolutely die. Okay, but if you can come in with the Incineroar, Intimidate in the opposing slot, then you live the Life Orb Airstream, right? And then you can get off your G-Max over your G-Max Vine Lash, I should say. I know it says Overgrowth, but yeah, you get the idea. So that's something to worth note. Zapdos should more or less be the same idea. Let's just take a look at Zapdos here. So this is our that's a bulkier Zapdos from a previous build. But if this was regular Zapdos, again, the Airstream, you know, there's no Regieleki. We still live this Airstream, so we're very bulky in general, so that's always good. If this was Life Orb, what are our chances with this? Can we still live it? And that's not so great. Okay, so if the Zapdos is Life Orb, max Airstream, all right, then we're gonna have a little bit of trouble. But again, if it's not Life Orb and you know it's not Life Orb, then you can live the Airstream, right? This is why Grimmsnarl is so good, because if you had that light screen, then you're just kind of chilling. All right, so those are our Venusaur main calcs. But again, what about like Incineroar? Just one more. So let's go like something like this, where it's just 4 attack Incin. Flare Blitz not gonna kill, but if there was Sun, okay, so we do live a regular Flare Blitz from an Incineroar with this amount of bulk, so that's always kind of good to know, even in the Sun. But yeah, that, and Max Quake also with this investment, even if it's careful to the first bump, Max Quake will not kill. It'll do big damage, but it won't kill. So there's also something to be interested in. So yeah, those are our main Venusaur calcs. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is, before we test out both of these squads, so I'm going to show you one without the Indeedee and instead with the Grimmsnarl, and show you how the team changes a little bit. So of course we're going to go Light Clay, all right, and we're going to go Spirit Break, our Fairy Stab, which actually gets a benefit from Fairy Aura. So that's always nice, all right, if you have a stronger Grimmsnarl. Reflect is good. Light Screen, okay, and then Scary Face for a little bit more speed control. I think this is really, really good. And again, we're just going to go our Careful route, where we go up to 121. Again, we're using the same Grimmsnarl spread that we've always used on the channel since the very beginning of time. All right, this speed tier allows you to outspeed base 100s after 2 Airstreams from a Zard. All right, 1 boosting the attack, and then 220 in the HP department. So this is always good for our Grimmsnarl, because now we have extra bulk on the whole team, and this is what the team likes in general. But now let's just show you how we adjust things. So with the Venusaur, now instead of Life Orb, we can go my favorite item on the Venusaur, which is the Weakness Policy item. So let me just put that here, and we're just going to make a couple of changes, not too drastic change, but we're just going to optimize the HP a little bit to 175. This way, when it's out of Sun, if there's Ice and Hail Chip, then we can optimize our HP that way, and just a tiny bit of defensive bulk is still there. And again, if those things are clicking Airstreams or Max Flares with, you know, Light Screen or Reflect Up, we're gonna eat those, and we're gonna get our policy going, and now Venusaur hits like a truck. All right, and the Zard, you can honestly keep the Assault Vest on it. I think it's fine. You can put the Life Orb on it, but you know, I chose not to. I think there was a couple of games where I was trying it, where I put the Life Orb and the Assault Vest. I didn't really see too much of a difference. You know, Zard still did what it did, mainly because, you know, I didn't have a big sample size. But, you know, if you want to put the Life Orb on it, I'll even put it for you here just so that you can see the difference in the two builds. You know, I still think you want that Rock move, Ancient Power. Do you still want it, or do you still think you can deal with it with Groudon? I think you're fine with the Groudon. So then here you can just still keep the Scorching Sands, at least with the special defense bonuses. All right, and then with this Life Orb, now you can do it like this. All right, boom, and that's our Zard spread. So this is version 2, okay, where we have a weakness policy Venusaur with the Grimmsnarl, and we have a Life Orb Zard, and we didn't really touch the Xern and the Groudon and the Incin. Those were fine. These were the main 2 that were adjusted. So, and again, this is with Indeedee Focus Sash Redirection. Now with this, you can put the Sash on the Venusaur if you want, and just put like, you know, Psychic Seeds on this and make this a bulkier Indeedee if you want. And then you can give this the Life Orb with the Zard. That's also fine. And if you prefer that, just comment in the video description and I'll show you what that looks like. But I think this is still fine for what we're trying to do with our Xerneas, right? Again, this is with redirection support. This is with screen support, and you know, you have a weakness policy Venusaur. I think in the long run, this one might outperform this one, because you know, the Indeedee's good, but you know, it's not like Grimmsnarl, right? You know, Grimmsnarl is just so good, and it's also cool that you get Stab, Spirit Break. The only drawback is that now you have 2 things weak to Zacian, and that's not great. But then again, you have a Groudon, Incin, and a Charizard to deal with Zacian. So you know, it all depends on how you view it. I think Indeedee's really nice. I think the Grimmsnarl is really, really good, of course. But yeah, let's just go ahead and just check out some practice games. Okay, so this one is against Zacian Palkia. So Xern looks like it could potentially do something here, especially since he also has a Grimmsnarl on there and an Urshifu. So he's got 3 things weak to Xern. That's one thing to note. So, you know, and there's no real fake out here. So, you know, I don't see why I can't just lead Indeedee Xern and just start setting up Geomancy boosts. Alright, so that's what I decided to do, and he has a Grimmsnarl and a Thundurus. So again, the Grimmsnarl can't go for priority moves other than screens, because we have Psychic Terrain up. So if it wants to use stuff like Scary Face or Thunder Wave, that's not going to happen here. And the Thundurus, I have to click Follow Me just so that I can see whether it's Defiant or Prankster. But I'm pretty sure this is Defiant. There's no way you would have both Prankster Thundurus and Prankster Grimmsnarl. 2 Pranksters in Psychic Terrain? I don't think so. So I'm still just going to click the Geomancy no matter what. But I'm just scouting to see whether or not who's doing some shenanigans. And there's the Crunch. So there's the Defiant Thundurus, right? And of course I get the free Geomancy going. Okay, so he already has the light screen up. So I'm trying to mitigate that with my Helping Hand. And the Grimmsnarl goes down, but the Thundurus still lives a little bit and he goes for Fly. So here's the Zacian, right? So now, what I can do is, again, be aggressive, and even if I lose the Xerneas, I have the Charizard in the back. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click Protect on the... No, I click Follow Me, I'm sorry. He clicked Protect. He knocks out my Indeedee, which again is fine, but now I have the Zard. So here's what I'm saying. So here's the Zacian in the face of my Xerneas and also Zard. If the Zacian decides to go for the Xerneas... Alright, first of all, I'm going to go first. I have the Geomancy boost. So I'm going to deal some chip on either the Zacian, or I'm going to remove the Thundurus. And then if the Zacian decides to go for the Xerneas, he loses the Zacian because I have a Charizard, right? And, you know, he has a Palkia in the back. So he can't afford not to kill the Xerneas here, right? So he actually switches into Palkia, alright, which is very interesting. Because I could have just clicked a +2 Dazzling Gleam, but maybe he anticipated that. So the Wild Charge knocks out his own Thundurus, and I get my Wildfire chip going. You know, I was applying pressure on the Zacian, and here comes the Zacian out again for another turn. So here I'm anticipating that he clicks Protect on the Zacian. So, you know, I try to just be aggressive with the Zard and just go for Airstreams and whatnot. So there's the trip. He actually didn't click Protect on the Zacian, and he just made me lose it. Alright, he actually clicked Protect on the Palkia, right? I guess that makes sense, right? Because he wants to remove the Xerneas, so this way the Palkia is the endgame max, which makes me think, well, you know, I could have just removed the Zacian with the Zard, and then Groudon wins the game in the back, because now you have no super effective water move, at least in the beginning. So I get another Airstream. I'm just trying to get a little bit faster than the Zacian. Alright, and there's my Wildfire chips that are taking away. Alright, I know he has Light Screen, which is why my damage isn't as good. But now he protects the Zacian, but I'm still targeting the Palkia, because if my Groudon gets faster than the Palkia, I can kill with Precipice Blades, and that's exactly what I do. So the Palkia max was wasted, And, you know, and now the Zacian can't really compete with the Zard and the Groudon, and now he has to forfeit. So that's what I mean. So the Xerneas put on enough pressure where, you know, you took out a lot of his early Mons, and, you know, I made some hard reads that didn't pay off, but it didn't matter because I had Charizard and Groudon to win the game against Zacian. And that's how you're supposed to play these kinds of squads. So, okay, so this one's a Trick Room matchup, and there's the Necrozma Dawnwings, and there's Calyrex Ice, and Stakataka is an interesting steel type that I think on the right team can do a lot of damage. But other than that, you know, Xern still looks kind of good, especially against some of these mons like Liepard and also that Necrozma. And as long as I bring in the Zard and the Incineroar, I think we're fine. So I'm still going to lead my Xerneas here, but this time I'm going to lead it with Incineroar here. So Xern Incin is good here, right? Because now I intimidate the Calyrex right off the bat, and, you know, and the Xern can go for a free Geomancy if it wants. The Liepard can go for Fake Out if it wants, I guess. But, you know, I can just go for Parting Shot next turn, and then the Calyrex is even more sad. And then the Xern can go for Geomancy, and then now it's in trouble. But, you know, he decides to Dynamax the Calyrex. It's -1. He max guards. He's going for the Trick Room play, but we flinched the Liepard, so we waste a turn of his max, and I go for my Geomancy now instead of, you know, Dazzling Gleam. Maybe I should have Dazzling Gleam so that way he didn't get the Trick Room up. But he goes for the max guard now, and there's the Trick Room, and there's the Parting Shot. So now the Calyrex is -2. Here's my Groudon, and here's my Gleam. We do a little bit of good damage on the Calyrex, and we remove the Liepard. So now here's the Stakataka. So now I have two things staring at my Xerneas that doesn't want to take, you know, a steel move, but I have Incineroar in the back, and that is the key. So I'm going to lose all my boost, switch out into Incineroar, okay, and now Calyrex is -3. I can max the Groudon now. The Gyro Ball does no damage. The Hailstorm does a little bit of damage. He takes away the Sun, but I remove the Stakataka with a Max Quake. And again, now this Calyrex is stuck at -3, and he only has a Throw. I don't know why some people are using Throw now, but I fake out the Calyrex just to stall another turn of Trick Room. I Max Quake, I deal some damage on the Throw. I thought I could KO the Calyrex, but I thought he would probably click Protect. But I probably should have clicked Rockfall into the Calyrex, but it doesn't matter. Because now I have my Xern. I know there's still Trick Room left, so I'm just going to protect the Xern here. And, you know, just keep doing big damage with the Groudon. The Calyrex can't really do that much. And now I decide to go for the Rockfall, and down goes the Calyrex, and all he has left is a Throw. And now my Berry procs because the Calyrex is gone from the field. And again, Xern did its job in the early game, right? So now all I'm doing is just stalling the last turn of Trick Room. I don't really need to, because, you know, the Throw just dies to burn anyway, which is an interesting bond to bring in this kind of matchup. So that was nice. Let's look at another. Okay, this is an interesting run, right? Because this is also almost a mirror. This is Zacian Xerneas, where he's going against Groudon Xerneas. So again, the Zard looks good here. Now, I don't think he brings the Xerneas in this matchup. I think he has to go with, you know, the Landers, just because the Landers does really well against a lot of what I have. But I do have a Xerneas for an endgame, and I think it's very interesting in this kind of position. So I'm going to shoot for that in the beginning. So he goes with Grimmsnarl, he goes with Incin. So this is very passive, actually. And if I chose to fake out the Incin and go for Geo, that would have been great, but I don't know what the Grimmsnarl has, so I wanted to see what it had. So I didn't go for the Geo, I went for something else, and I noticed he has Scary Face, so there's the speed control there. And now I just repivot my Incin into Groudon, and he sets up the Reflect. I go for Swords Dance instead of Precipice Blades. He goes for Fire Blast, so that's a special Incineroar. I don't know what the heck he's doing there. But here's his Lando, so my Groudon is +1 now instead. I go for my Incin to make the Landers -1, and I baited the max, which is exactly what I wanted. And now the Groudon is looking really good because now I can remove the Incineroar. He goes for Quake, he pops my Berry. And now the thing is, because now 2 Mons are dead, the Landers is stuck here with -1, and I still have an Incineroar here. So here's the thing. I thought, you know, because I have the Incineroar, I have Fake Out. I can Fake Out the Zacian and kill the the Zacian with Max Quake. I thought the Zacian player would use his brain a little bit and click Protect, all right? Which meant I was aggressive with my Groudon. He did not click the Protect button. So I wanted to cycle my Incineroar and get in my Zard just in case he Max Quakes. But he didn't click Protect and he went for the Groudon. And at least I dodged one Max Quake there because I went into my Flying type. But here's Incineroar again. So we remove Zacian. We make this Landorus -2. There's the fake out that I wanted. He didn't click Protect again. And the Blast Bird just removes the Zacian. And now he removes my Incin even though he's -2. He does have a Life Orb again. But now what does he do one-on-one against Xerneas? He does absolutely nothing, right? I understand he has +2, but that's not going to stop me. All right. Because now I just get off my Geomancy. He tried to go for the flinch, it didn't work. And you see the Zard can live those Rock Slides, right? As long as you have the bulk. All right, that's all I needed with Blast Burn. The Rock Slide doesn't matter anymore, even if he crit. All right, because now I'm just free to even go for another Geomancy. Clicks Fly, that doesn't matter. And we just finish him off with a Moonblast. You know, I accidentally clicked Geo by accident. I really meant to Moonblast after the other time, but that's how it works out. But yeah, Xerneas again winning against a Zacian team. Okay, so this one is an interesting one, right? Because he's got a Trick Room mode with the Kyogre here. So there's Instant Mimikyu lead with Necrozma and Kyogre in the back. That's always possible. The Thundurus could be Prankster. I'm not sure. It could also be Defiant. You never know because the Necrozma doesn't appreciate Intimidate. So it might just be there to scare away potential Intimidators. But I do expect Instant Mimikyu lead here, which is why I'm going to go with Grimmsnarl and Groudon to try and stall out said Trick Room turns by just going for screens and Swords Dancing. But he goes with Kyogre instead. So I'm just going to go right into Venusaur. And he goes for Scary Face, and there's the Water Spout. So that doesn't do a lot of damage, so that's okay. Now what I can do is just go for Sleep Spams. He goes for Eerie Impulse, but that doesn't matter. I don't commit the max, and I'm just sleeping everything here. And now the Thunder's slept for a turn. The Kyogre still goes for more Water Spouts in the sun, and I sleep the Kyogre, and I get off a Spear Break. So now the Kyogre is also -1. So far, not too bad. Turn 3, right? We slept both things, and we made the Kyogre -1, and it's in the sun, so it's not going to be doing anything at all. I just have to remove this Thundurus. If the Thundurus is gone, then, you know, either Zard or Groudon as a max is going to win this game. So I'm just going to switch out this Venusaur into the Zard now. He wakes up, but thankfully he doesn't target the Thunderbolt in the Zard slot. He goes into the Grimmsnarl slot instead, but gets the Para. And I committed the max into the Zard. I shouldn't have done this. I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway. Because I know he has Eerie Impulse. So I probably should have saved the max for the Groudon, is what I'm thinking in the end. But still, I wanted to get some Wildfire Chip going. So even if he does survive, it's fine, but he doesn't survive. So the Wildfire still eliminates him. And now he's on a timer, right? So, but there's the Mimikyu. So right now he's trying to go for the Trick Room play. I just need to remove the Kyogre. So even if the Airstream is not the best play, it's still a stab move, and I still need to just absolutely remove this Kyogre. I cannot let it wake up, and I'll just have to play an end game where I have to maneuver around the Necrozma because I know it's coming, and there it is. So he maxes the Necrozma. This is probably, and it's Shadow Sneak. There's the policy, and you know, I'm just trying to break the Mimikyu disguise. And right now, I'm just playing for the Groudon endgame if I can. He goes for max Mindstorm, so I take it, you know, because, you know, I'm AV. And I just decide to keep going for Wildfire damage. Again, just chipping the Necrozma, stalling his max until Trick Room is done. He kills my Zard with the Steel Spike, so that's not good for the Groudon endgame, but that's okay. Because the Wildfire chips are ticking away. I have to sacrifice the Venusaur here because, you know, he has a Psychic move, and I unfortunately it's still okay. There's one more turn of Trick Room, and I do enough chip damage with the Spirit Break where the Groudon can pick up, and I do survive the Photon Geyser, thankfully, right? Even after it's +2, but you know, the Will-O-Wisp, I don't think it would have mattered. I still would have killed it, and because Trick Room is gone, Groudon has a single target Precipice Blades, and there it is. So we win the game, And even though we made a mistake maxing the Zard, and we probably would have it a little bit easier if we maxed the Groudon, I still think we did what we needed to do. The Wildfire chip damage really helped out. So, you know, again, this was not a game for Xerneas, but this was a game for the Sun Boys, and we still pulled it out in the end. Okay, so that was the Grimmsnarl version, right, in that last battle, which, you know, works out really well. That's actually why I won the game, because I was able to outbulk the Dynamax of that Necrozma. But again, there's no Indeedee redirection, but still, that's okay. You still have screen support to help you. You still have Incineroar fake out pressure to help you, and just be overall bulky, and just, you know, you could play for that Xerneas endgame if you need to. But the Sun guys are really going to carry you. But again, Palkia and Xerneas, they don't want. I'm sorry, Palkia and Yveltal, they don't want to deal with Xerneas, so that's always good. This version, this has the Indeedee, so you can lead Indeedee Xern if you don't want to lead Xerneas Incin. You can go for the follow me, you know, Geomancy stuff. You know, stop opposing fake out pressure. The Venusaur does extra damage now with the Life Orb, and you have still that Assault Vest Charizard here instead of the Life Orb one. But yeah, the Groudon and the Incineroar, they pretty much stay the same. So, and let me know which version you like. They both have their merits. Do you want the Grimmsnarl or do you want the Indeedee? And then again, that affects the rest of the sets on the Venusaur and the Zard. But I think they're both equally good depending on the player. So, but yeah, Xerneas Groudon, it's good. Try it. It has a bit of a skill cap, but you can make it work as long as you position the Xerneas properly. Alright, so we'll be back with another Series 12 team building video. It's almost time for the February format to start, so get your teams ready. Until then, have a good one.